I think the overall growth of e-commerce has, although the take-up remains quite modest, I think we see growth in that, and actually an underlying story that more take-up space is dedicated to online logistics, given 3PLs, etc. But I think the reason why investors are coming into the sector for a number of reasons, I agree, but one of them being the growth of e-commerce is the different types of buildings and the different location characteristics that they would have. The growth in the new larger sheds or larger units is attracting investors for the long income type of deals they can get there. I think we've seen more recently a growth in the type of investors looking at investing in parcel hubs, the cross-dock units, which might be closer to city centres, to urban areas, or to ports and airports. And I think the multifaceted nature of the types of buildings we're seeing are contributing to the investor demand in the sector and the investor demand in e-commerce.
I mean, what we're seeing is obviously supply chains are very, I mean, as I said, they're very complex and there are very different activities across the supply chain. So we see that different types of buildings are in demand, and this includes also older stock. It includes also, it doesn't need, a building doesn't need to be absolutely new and has all the new features, and it can even be a building that is 8 meters instead of 12 or 14, because if I don't have to put up as many shelves, or I don't have as many automation, then I don't need, you know, a lot of high-rise buildings. So that, I think, is the interesting part at the moment, that a lot of different types of buildings are needed, and that the distribution is happening through many different types of warehouses, and these include new ones, so there's opportunity for development, but it also includes existing stock, though there is not a huge fear about increasing obsolescence really in the market.
We all have in mind, you know, the Amazon model with a lot of picking, a lot of conveyor. But in the end, when you look at what is the commerce behind, if you take furnitures, for example, it doesn't change that much. That is, it's order through e-commerce, or you order in a shop, because it will, at a certain moment, be coming from a warehouse and go to your place. So this is not a big change, even if in the statistic it moves from traditional commerce to the e-commerce. That's where I join what Joseph was saying, that indeed we see a lot of the letting we're doing in our warehouses that are more for e-commerce, but with the same type of buildings.
Do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, and that's a similar trend we see in the Logicore portfolio. Another, hopefully, a conclusion we can get to is that with the investments to be made by occupiers in automation and in their new supply chain, you would also likely to see a stronger commitment to a location by those omni-channel and also pure play e-commerce companies. So that would mean, if you take it further, that would mean a higher rent level and a longer lease term, and with that, higher values for those assets which are at a good location, in the right spec, and useful for the e-commerce players.
I think the greatest change we see in real estate are these last mile distribution, which Alexandra was talking earlier about. Particularly players like DHL invest a lot of money at the moment into the market to get that cross-dock, the last mile supplied in the local area, and I think that's something which is getting quite interesting. In terms of the generic sheds, at the moment all the e-commerce players try actually the normal sheds. Otherwise, I think it's a trial and error, and no investor wants to sit on a specialized e-commerce shed, which is then probably obsolescent within the next 5 to 10 years. So at the moment we see rather the e-commerce retailers or e-commerce traders using the normal shed model than other way around, that we build or develop special e-commerce hubs. The only thing where we see that development is certainly in the last mile distribution, which is absolutely needed, because now everybody is expecting to get their parcels within 24 hours.
And just jumping in on that, Christopher mentioned DHL, and when we say e-commerce is acting as a structural driver today for logistics take-up, is that when there is an e-commerce or an e-tailer in one park, for example, and it's an established logistics location, usually it acts as a magnet to other companies who wants to establish their operations there, whether there are suppliers to the e-commerce company or just service provider like, you know, DHL or other 3PLs. So it is increasing the normal take-up, that it's not just the e-commerce building that's been taken up, but it attracts other suppliers and service providers to the e-commerce company. As far as the specs goes, each e-commerce company has really its own process and its own operations, and it very much depends on the products that they aim to doing. And it's a proprietary thing, so it's not something that belongs to the building. So they, you know, 99% of what we've seen in e-commerce is they're very much happy with the box and they fit it out according to their needs. Even sometimes they don't want us to see how they're fitting it out. And, you know, we need to go in there. It's like going through an airport and security and, you know, nothing allowed in and out there.